Take it away.
Thanks, Greg. Let's see. If you ask Mandy Sliver to tell you what motivates her, she'll tell you that for her, it's always been about learning. She's involved herself in the community deeply since 2006 in both volunteer and paid work. First, as a member of the Gen XY Advisory Committee and the circulation manager at Monadnock Ledger Transcript. This was just the beginning of her journey to becoming such an integral part of our community, of our town. In these roles, she provided advice, opinion, and constructive direction on town matters and issues as she herself absorbed countless anecdotes and experience with developing her professional leadership skills. Mandy has a unique way of viewing the work she does. For her, it's about the individual and the larger group simultaneously. Quote, I just really love to run into folks on the street and hear them tell me about what they have going on, and sometimes I can offer a local resource that may help with their specific situation. She will say casually. Despite the focus on the individual, when talking about broader concerns, she is about to take a step back and look at the wide world view. I don't always want to know everything about an issue. Sometimes I just want to know enough and let the experts handle that knowledge. Her modesty regarding her own aptitude indicates true reflection and understanding of her own limits. In 2010, she began what has become one of her most personally rewarding efforts, involving herself in volunteer tax preparation for the Rivers Center, serving the Eastern Monadnock Region. Quote, I just wish I could spend more time doing the work. It means so much to people and it's so important, unquote. It resonates deeply with her self-expressed desire to be available as a resource for the people in her community. Her contributions to the River Center have only grown over the years, from joining the board of directors in 2016 and then becoming the treasurer in 2018 and board chair in September of 2021. Thank you, Mandy. After leaving Monadnock Ledger Transcript in 2012, she took a HR specialist position at Rivermead, where she further encompassed herself in the diversity of our community. This has brought her a keen understanding of the dynamic nature of residents in Peterborough, as well as a method by which she can bridge a gap between contrasting perspectives on issues that affect all citizens equally. Volunteer work throughout town has been a constant for Mandy, and yet another way in which she expresses her need to help create connection among members of the community. Adding to her example of running into folks around town, she points out that frequently when she's offering a recommendation, she has just seen or spoken to precisely the right person to help. Her calm and affable demeanor make her a naturally comfortable person to speak with, and her reliable contributions make her a trustworthy person when someone wants to get something great accomplished. It has led to her becoming a leader in the community. During her time at Rivermead and at the Ledger Transcript, she was asked to join the board of directors of the Greater Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, and she completed the New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits Hoffman-Haas Fellowship. She was a member of the Peterborough Women's Club, where she held the position of vice president and president. She currently serves as a treasurer of the Salvation Army's Peterborough Service Unit and is a 2019 graduate of Leadership, New Hampshire. Mandy will modestly call herself a jack of all trades, master of none, as she shows a mastery of understanding how to observe, value, and synergize expertise. She will be quick to remind that this is a town run by experts in their fields, whether it's our select board members or other elected town officials, town administrators, or first responders. She is in her third year as Associate Director of Leadership New Hampshire, a statewide organization created in 1991 to increase civic engagement and strengthen communities through connecting and educating New Hampshire's leaders. Locally, she was elected treasurer of the town of Peterborough in 2021 after serving as deputy treasurer for 3 years. She is serving her second term on the town's budget advisory committee and was a member of the Peterborough Community Task Force on Housing. She describes the task force as one of her more challenging efforts she's become involved in simply for the massive scope of the project, but also expresses her optimism and enthusiasm about participating. Although she'll say she's gotten into it for selfish reasons, she does admit another more selfless motivator behind the her work, the act of bringing people together. I'd like to welcome Mandy Sliver. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. That was great. And now, so what I'll do first, I think, is now that you know all about me, I'm going to start off my presentation just by showing a little bit of a video. The Leadership New Hampshire class of 2021 graduated in May, and we did up a video with some of them speaking directly about their experience in the program, and I think it's a great way to introduce you to it, that you can hear from someone other than me for a second. I will warn you that the graduation took place up at the Mount Washington Resort on a very windy spring day. So I apologize. Some of the audio, you have to ignore the New Hampshire wind in the background, but should be good. Should I just be able to do this myself? Share screen? Yeah. Just share the one that I'm looking at? Yeah. Video's down. Okay. Yeah. There's the video. Should I make it full screen or is that? Yeah. I can't get to it. Oh. There it is. Here we go.
When you share, there's a little click that you need to do to turn on volume.
Oh.
You should stop sharing.
Well, I have to.
Wow, guys, we made it. We did it, Joe. We did it.
Happy to be here, honored to be here, and especially with this class that has the challenges that your class did, remote, Zooming, and now all together here. And I'm sure this is a wonderful feeling for all of you. So
probably the thing that I value most from this experience has really been the people. The people have been extremely amazing, from the leadership and really the building of community of the different individuals within the program.
Really feels like the folks who do this program feel a greater calling to their communities, which I had for myself, but just knowing that there's this many people out there, and now there's 1,000 alumni because we just graduated the 1,000th person. That's a huge network of individuals who all agree that our commitment to our state is real and long lasting, and that's a really hopeful thing.
New Hampshire did such a great job this year building connections through the technology that we had. It was challenging, but I think the key with Leadership New Hampshire is that there's always going to be challenges to working together. You know, people are busy, people are overburdened, there's resource scarcity, and the pandemic was just another example that if we don't learn how to connect through the challenges, we're really not going to be able to do what the state needs us to do.
But I also don't think I realized the impact of digging into each session, each topic, and hearing from the experts in whatever area we were researching that day, alongside my classmates, and really kind of taking each topic and pulling it apart and analyzing it and understanding it and trying to think about how we can have an impact on it, whatever it may have been. To me, it's like I knew that was going to happen, but I don't think I realized how much when I sat down with my classmates, it was more than just learning about the topic. It was actually figuring out how together we could embrace it and do something with it.
I was in a space with people who genuinely cared, genuinely wanted to be better versions of themselves, of ourselves. And it was really refreshing and beautiful and dynamic. And it became clear that it was something really special that I had the opportunity to be a part of.
But what we're challenged with today is that every single one of us need to be the ones willing to break the inertia of consistency that we're seeing in polarization. It's up to us
to take a step, to take a pause, and to consider alternative perspectives. And that's the power of Leadership New Hampshire. We have now a strong legacy of leaders within our state history that are change makers. But even now, we are at a place where we need to make a decision. We have to make a decision to be brave enough to say no, brave enough to maybe go against what the norms of our social circles say, brave enough to consider and have a discussion with someone who may not believe, may not see things the same way we see things. And it's only then that we can embrace really the spirit of what New Hampshire is. That rugged individualism, that small town, big change philosophy that we embrace as Granite Staters. So I want to thank each of you for helping me during this very difficult year to renew my inspiration and to renew my hope in really creating a future that we can all be proud of. And I hope that this is not the end. I hope that this is a new beginning to greater things.
I can go to Southern New Hampshire knowing that I can find a state legislature, a state rep that's going to help me. I can go to the Seacoast. I'm going to find a housing director that is going to help me if I have a question. So the connections and the network that I got from this class is to me amazing.
By the start of the program, you have that question, and as you evolve through the program, you realize the answer is right there in front of you. It's the people you're in the room with. They all represent a diverse set of values from all walks of life in New Hampshire, from all sectors. And you learn just as much from your presenters as you do from the classmates. And for me, the biggest takeaway was just making new friendships and just getting to know people and know that they have the same interests that you do, which is to help make New Hampshire a better place every day.
I don't think I have heard a better set of graduation remarks than what I've heard this afternoon from all of you. One of my favorite people was John Henry Cardinal Newman, and his motto was cor ad cor loquitur, heart speaking to heart. And I was thinking of that as I was listening to all of you talk about what Leadership New Hampshire meant to you and what you mean to one another. And so my closing remarks to you is simply to keep that in mind. You are now going into the larger Leadership New Hampshire community. And some of those alums are sitting right behind you. And so get to know them, talk to them. But there are many, many, many more out there. In fact, 1,104, 5, something like that now. Go out there. They are the network. They are the people that when you pick up the phone and you call them, and after you've had the initial chit chat, they will say, what can I do to help? And that is really what we are all about.
Everybody back. Much easier to get everybody back than to get them. So that was the most recent class that graduated, the class of 2021. We've already started with the class of 2022. So just to give you a little, I think they did a great job of explaining some of the nuances of the organization as a whole, and also many people spoke to the diversity of the group as far as, regional diversity, racial diversity, socioeconomical diversity, everything about that. And so being from the Monadnock region myself, one thing that I will say right out the gate, I feel like Monadnock region is not very well represented as far as Leadership New Hampshire alumni go. So think about people that you may want to, that may be good candidates. Harry's pointing over here. So a little bit of history, the 30 years of LNH, I'm going to refer to as LNH because Leadership New Hampshire is quite a mouthful. So LNH was created back in 1991. So Governor Judd Gregg had a commission. It was the Governor's Commission on New Hampshire in the 21st century. So it's 30 years old now, but it still holds true in a lot of ways. It's a fascinating document. If anyone ever is interested in reading it, you can find the full document on the LNH website. But it's sometimes striking to see that 30 years later, there are a lot of things that are still issues in the state. And I think we all know what some of those are, but we have come a long way as well. So 30 years later, we're starting our 30th class, and we are still going strong. So one of the things in that commission that was the goal is they set out basically modeling this program after leadership programs in other states around the country. And we also had a couple regional programs in New Hampshire at the time. I think Leadership Seacoast and maybe Leadership Greater Nashua are older than Leadership New Hampshire. We now have a regional Leadership Monadnock program. Steve actually is just going to be starting that program this year. So there are, I think, 12 regional programs across the state, and they are not affiliated with LNH, but we all work together to make sure that that we can all continue to survive, because they're all equally as important, whether it's a regional program, a town program, or a state program. But the purpose of the program, reading directly from this, is to identify emerging talent, motivate emerging leaders concerning statewide issues and perspectives, build the expectation that they will take on leadership roles on statewide issues, and develop a network for effective leadership. So I think that is just the very quick, easy way to describe what LNH does. But the more logistical side of it is we have a cohort every year, 20 to 30 individuals. Actually, my class of 2019 actually had 41 individuals. It was the largest class. And we basically went through the program from September through May, and every month the group gets together for one day. It's a full 9 to 5 day in a different location around the state, and we tackle a topic. So these are the topics that some of the graduates spoke about. Topics include education, business and the economy, government and politics, health and healthcare, public safety and criminal justice, all these very important topics. And we take that full day, bring in speakers from around the state who are experts in those fields, and they have a chance to have a discussion about some of the, more in-depth discussion than I think we're able to have sometimes when just sitting with people that we associate with every day, people that we, that we already kind of know, or have those relationships with. So that's one of the big powers of the program, is that you have people in the room together who are some in healthcare, some in education, and some, they're from all these different industries, and they can get together and share ideas and get to know each other. And then after graduation is where the power comes in, where we have, 1,000 strong as far as the alumni goes, is those 1,000 alumni, they stay connected as, almost like it's something where if I meet somebody else that I know is an alumni, you immediately say, oh, you're from LNH. Well, I know. And it's like you're an instant friend. It's that kind of community that even though you haven't met the person, right away the kind of person that they are. That they're a leader, that they're going to be, they're going to listen to you. They're going to have a conversation with you. They're going to want to make change. They're going to want to do good things, and that they also love the state of New Hampshire. So each year when we do build our class, there's an application process that everybody goes through. And part of that application process is we ask everybody, what are the 3 most important issues facing the state of New Hampshire today? And it's an essay, and they usually write and indicate those 3. So I always find it interesting to look at those issues and what people find. So I think that this year's class, it's been an issue that I think every class chooses in some way, but I find it really interesting that the housing and homelessness issue, this year's class is the first class probably in the last 10 years, well, as long as I think we've been tracking this, it's clearly at the top. It's over half of the people chose it as one of their top 3 issues facing the state of New Hampshire. So those are the kind of things where, we look at that, we look at the lens. Number 2, at a close second, racial and social justice and inequalities. Those issues have never really risen right to the surface. And I think it's wonderful to see that we're starting to have these conversations, and hopefully be able to get some change moving forward. But knowing that we've got some really powerful people in the room, we've got some really influential people in the room that can then take the information that they learn and go out into the state and make change with this is pretty powerful. So we also, as I said, completed the Monadnock region this year. We have, I do believe we have actually a fellow Rotarian, Kathy Collinsworth, was the Elm City Rotary president last year. She was accepted into last year's program, but had to defer because we met on the same days as Rotary on Thursdays. So she's in this year's class, and we do have Adam Hamilton, who is a neighbor here, was in the class of 2020. And you know, we do have some wonderful people in the Monadnock region. In our past history, I think some of you may not, John Vance is, you know, here in Peterborough. John was a graduate back in the 90s, and I myself was in the class of 2019, but Pam Brenner actually was the Peterborough town administrator. I think she was in the class of 95. So we do have some Monadnock region representation, but always looking for more. But most of the people do come from the Merrimack Valley region at this point, but we have North Country is another focus that we like to bring about, to make sure that people really understand that the challenges that New Hampshire's North Country faces are quite different sometimes than the rest of the state, but also they are part of the state. So with that, I wanted to just open it up for question and answer, see what kind of things you all would like to know, because I think that's going to be the best way to go. Yes.
What's your mix of government, private sector?
That is a good question. To be honest, we don't have as many people from the public sector, from government that I would like. I'm actually trying to actively recruit more. We do have, it's, you know, as you'll expect with a program like this, giving up a full day, it requires the buy-in of the employer. It requires somebody to be able to have that little bit of flexibility in the schedule. That is a huge barrier to the program, and that is probably the biggest barrier. For that reason, it's very difficult for us to get educators, because giving up a full day in the middle of the week is a challenging thing, but we are starting to see a shift in that. And so I would say that we have very few as far as, you know, and when you say government, do you mean, you know, people involved in the government? Because in New Hampshire, we have a huge volunteer legislature. So, you know, last year we did, one of our state reps, Rebecca McWilliams, was in the class. So I would consider her government because she is a state rep, but yet she's also an attorney and a farm owner. So
I was just thinking more along the lines of, you know, either state government or municipal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think we usually have in a class year a town administrator or two. I have a couple that are, you know, in those kinds of roles, usually as and again, it's kind of people with boots on the ground. It's difficult to get them to be able to make that time commitment. But it is something I'm actively working on getting more of. Yeah, because I think that's hugely important. I've also, last year we had a state trooper in the class, and I'm actually talking with Ed Walker. I'm trying to get our Peterborough fire chief. I think he's going to apply next year, because I think it's a perspective that is definitely needed in all of these conversations.
You
and
have
there should
community
be
leaders from both
absolutely.
sides.
Yes. Yeah. And some people think the other thing is there's a very strong emphasis placed in the program on running for elected office and on serving on nonprofit boards. Those are kind of the two things. Those are the first ways to encourage people to give back to their community and to get involved. And from there, that's where you can often springboard to make the most change. And so you will see people, and that's why you heard in my intro that I'm the treasurer for the town of Peterborough. And coming out of my Leadership New Hampshire experience was one of those things. I was always afraid to run for elected office. I was like, I can't do that. I wouldn't be able, but I was able to see and got the encouragement and the support, and realized that this is really how, this is how I'm going to become more involved in the parts that interest me in the town of Peterborough. So I did run for treasurer, and I am the treasurer in May. And if any of you have seen the news lately, that's been a challenging job, but it is an interesting time. And so I do I do joke about that, you know, what was I getting myself into? But it's also been very rewarding to be able to see, you know, to see the town come together and take responsibility and work towards a solution and the energy of the townspeople. So it is interesting. Yes. Oh, sorry. Peg?
So when does the program start? September?
So, yep, we start September. So typically that is a 2-day retreat, which we had at the Barbara C. Harris Conference Center and Camp this year, which is an amazing facility, by the way, in Greenfield. And so it's a 2-day retreat that's in September. That was last week for the new class. And then the graduation is in May. Yep. And
Is there a cost?
yes. So the tuition for the program, most of the regional leadership programs are a little bit less expensive, but you know, we travel around the whole state. So it's $3,850 is the tuition for each student. But we have a tuition assistance fund at LNH that it's our annual appeal is that we don't, as a nonprofit, we don't facilitate funds from the general public. We just go to our alumni. We ask for donations for the tuition assistance fund, and anyone who cannot pay the tuition can apply for those funds. And we are very fortunate to have generous alumni that help support that fund because they understand the importance of having the perspective of everyone. I myself was a full scholarship recipient. So I was able to, because at the time I was working for a nonprofit, I was working at Rivermead. And so, you know, nonprofits don't have the capabilities. A lot of the private sector employers will pay for their employees to go through the program. But if it's somebody who is working at a nonprofit or someone who is self-employed, they may need the tuition assistance. During COVID, that assistance skyrocketed and we were still able to meet the need. So we didn't turn anybody away for financial need. And it is a need blind process. So, you know, there are some, the Charitable Foundation was one of our grantors. When we started 30 years ago, it was the Business Industry Association and New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Those two together created Leadership New Hampshire. And Charitable Foundation is still a huge sponsor and supporter of ours. They're one of our legacy sponsors. And some people have set up funds. We have funds for Upper Valley recipients that if anyone from the Upper Valley goes, there's a separate fund that they can get tuition assistance from and various things like that. So, yeah.
And just one other question, when do people apply? When do you decide on who gets in?
Yep. So the application process begins in January each year. So it's very, right now, we'll start in January, we'll open up applications, and generally people find out in May or June and get the opportunity to accept or deny, and then starts in September. So we do start it fairly early because the application process, they apply. It is you know, like I said, there's essay questions, there's that type of thing that requires 2 letters of recommendation. There's an interview. Every single applicant receives an interview. We have alumni volunteers that set up interviews and teams. And after that, then the selection committee goes through all of the information and we go through and try to put together the best class that we can. Yes. Peg.
Years ago, there was, and I think this was a knockoff, it was Leadership Monadnock Region.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was running through the Keene Chamber.
Yep.
And is that still going on today?
It is. So Leadership Monadnock is it is part of the Keene Peterborough Chamber.
Okay.
And it's one of the regional programs. They took last year off because of COVID. So there are a lot of the regional programs, you know, again, as being part of a chamber, sometimes it's a money issue. A lot of chambers lose money on those programs. And so it was a challenge, and getting participants in a COVID year was really challenging. We had our only 27 people in last year's class, which is a lot lower. But yeah, the Monadnock, yep.
That I sent, and it was like $200. This was in 2000.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what year, but
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Each of the regional, there are, I think 12 or 14 regional programs around the state, and they are very similar. Actually, the person who I think started and created and ran Leadership Monadnock for many years, Susan Newcomer. She was an LNH graduate and she modeled it after LNH.
Yeah.
But then like the Seacoast was actually prior to us. They started before we did. And so, but they all run very similar. And that is a focus on the Monadnock region, and it's a wonderful program.
it is really good.
Yeah.
And the employee that I sent had she lived in the area for her entire life.
Yep.
She didn't know anything about the administration of the hospital.
Mhm.
And that was one of the companies that they explored, and they met once a month. And so she got to talk with the hospital administrator about how the hospital ran. I mean, if you're in the community and you can know enough to go to a board of directors meeting, or you need to know enough to read an annual report, you get a sense of this kind of administration. But she had no experience with that at all, so it was really great. It was really good for her to go and have that experience. So at the local level, it makes a big difference.
It does, and that's our government and politics day. It shows like a statewide government, and so I mean that was a new experience for me, getting to sit in the governor and executive council chambers for the day. We hear from the governor. One of the other sessions that we do as part of that month is we get a 90-minute private session with the New Hampshire Supreme Court. So to sit with the 5 justices and just have Q&A for 90 minutes and be able to ask them anything was amazing. I mean, that was something that I never would have had the opportunity to do, and just learned so much. And like you said, in the jobs that I've had and in the work that I've done, and sitting with Supreme Court justices, I knew nothing about the criminal justice system. I learned so much. We got to hear from the head of the public defender's office, and just hearing how the New Hampshire State Public Defender's Office works. It's nothing like what you see on TV. It's a whole different ballgame. And so getting to talk with people and ask those questions and find out, what really happens is it's very, it's huge. Yep. Yes.
You periodically do follow up on graduates to see, say, what percentage of them over 5 years have actually moved into what you would consider a leadership position?
It's an ongoing thing that we do. So we have, having that community, we try to have alumni events often. Again, the last 2 years, that's been a challenge, but we do have an online community, kind of like our own private, Facebook sort of, that it's a closed network. And I think right now we have 350 people who are active in that online network, at least. And so they can go in and update their profiles. They can add different things that they do. And so we're constantly trying to keep up. But
that's not bad out of 1,000 graduates.
No, it's not. Yeah, I'm really, really proud of that. And in that system, we just went live with that right at the beginning of COVID. So that system's only been up for not even 2 years. And getting them to, so we have like each class, basically, there's kind of a competition. There's every class says that they're the best class ever. So there's a little class. So within the classes, they do stay well connected a lot of times. So there are some classes that still meet quarterly. There are some that meet annually. There are some that just, subsets of the class meet. And so we're able to glean from those people, what the rest of your class is doing. And sometimes just being in charge with that, in connection with that one kind of class communicator person, we can get updates and, constantly, if we see what people are getting, elected or people are getting promotions, we can share that, amongst the network. So we don't have it in a formalized process yet, but we're constantly working on that. And I actually do have a team working right now, at least on the elected official piece, is that we do want to have hard numbers on how many of our alumni have served or have run, because it's not necessarily important that you were elected, but the fact that you ran for office is huge. And that shows, again, a level of commitment.
It gives you some sort of measure of your effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Questions?
Great.